Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a court decision out of India that's really sending shockwaves through the academic world. So, let's start with a big question, one that really gets to the heart of what we're talking about today. For many of us, this is probably just a hypothetical, but for literally millions of people, it's their day-to-day reality. And that's because, well, a recent court order just slammed a massive digital door shut. And it's kicked off this huge debate about who gets access to knowledge and who gets left behind. All right, let's get into the specifics of what actually happened. This is the breaking news that really lit a fire under this whole conversation. So here's the headline. On August 19th, 2025, the Delhi High Court ordered a complete and total ban. They told internet service providers you have to block access to Sci-Hub and LibGen, two of the biggest free academic libraries on the planet. Now, you gotta understand, this didn't just happen out of the blue. This has been a long time coming. The whole legal battle kicked off way back in 2020. That's when huge publishers like Elsevier and Wiley first filed a lawsuit. A year later, the court put an interim order in place, basically telling Sci-Hub, hey, no more new articles. But then, just this past April, Sci-Hub's founder started something new, Sci.net, and the publishers pounced. They argued that violated the order. And well, that's what triggered this huge sweeping ban we're seeing now.
Okay, so to really get why this ban is such a big deal, we need to take a step back and look at why millions of people were using these sites to begin with. Why were they such a lifeline?
And really, it all boils down to one thing: money. I mean, just look at this. To read a single research paper, you could be paying 30, 40, even 50 bucks. Now, for a student in India, that's not just pocket change. That can be a massive slice of their entire monthly budget. It makes doing real, consistent research pretty much impossible. And that's exactly where these shadow libraries came into the picture. You know, it's easy to just think of them as free stuff websites, but for millions of users, they were way more than that. They were an essential tool, a lifeline, really. They leveled the playing field, giving people access to information they just couldn't get their hands on otherwise.
And listen, this isn't some abstract academic debate. You can see the real-world impact right here. This quote from a PhD student in Kolkata. She says her PhD would have been impossible without Sci-Hub. And she's not alone. This is just one voice out of thousands. Researchers who are saying their work, their education, their whole careers were built on having this kind of access.
And just to give you a sense of the scale we're talking about, this isn't a niche problem. India's higher education system is enormous. We're talking over 43,000 colleges. But here's the catch. Only the absolute elite, the most well-funded universities, can actually afford the crazy subscription fees from publishers. So what happens to everyone else? The huge majority of students, especially in smaller cities or at state universities, they're basically left out in the cold. Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the legal fight. This is what it all boiled down to in the courtroom. It's that classic tug of war, right? Copyright on one side, and the public's right to know on the other. So you had the publishers making their case. They called Sci-Hub a rogue website, plain and simple. They said it's copyright violation, it's intellectual property theft. But then you had the other side, the users, the students and researchers. They were arguing, no, this is about fair use for education. They said it was a way to get around these impossible paywalls and open up access to knowledge that, by the way, was often created with public funding in the first place. So in the end, who did the court agree with? The publishers. The court's decision was clear. They classified Sci-Hub as a rogue website. They essentially said this isn't about education, it's infringement, just like pirating a movie. And they also pointed out that, hey, 11 other countries have already banned it too. All right, now let's zoom out a bit, because at the exact same time this legal drama was unfolding, there was this other kind of contradictory thing happening with government policy. And here's the paradox. It's a real head-scratcher. On one hand, you have the government pushing these huge initiatives like Digital India and talking all about building a knowledge economy. But on the other hand, this ban just cut off one of the main pipelines for the actual knowledge you need to fuel all that innovation. It feels like one hand doesn't know what the other is doing. Now, to be fair, the government knows there's an access problem. They even launched this big flagship program to try and fix it. It's called One Nation, One Subscription, or ONOS for short. And the idea is actually pretty brilliant. Get one giant subscription for all government academic institutions across the entire country. Great idea in theory, right? But this chart, well, it tells the story of the reality. The ONOS program has only reached about 7,000 institutions so far. That sounds like a lot until you see that it leaves almost 47,000, that's 47,000, institutions still completely without access. The gap is just massive. And this isn't just a simple delay in rolling things out. It's tied to a much bigger issue: funding. See, national education spending has been stuck at around 4% of GDP. That's way below the government's own stated goal of 6%. And when you don't have the money, big, ambitious projects like ONOS just can't scale up. And that knowledge gap, it just stays right where it is. So, let's bring it all together. What does all this mean? What are the real stakes here when you shut down a major source of information, while the official solution is still so far from being a reality? Well, for one thing, this ban doesn't hit everyone the same. It hits the people who are already struggling the hardest. We're talking about early career academics trying to make a name for themselves. We're talking about underpaid research assistants, students in state universities that don't have big budgets, even independent researchers, or just, a curious person who wants to learn something new. They're the ones who feel this the most. And this quote, it just nails the biggest fear, doesn't it? Banning shadow libraries won't kill curiosity. It will only starve those who can't afford to feed it. The whole point is that the privileged, the well-funded, they'll always find a way to get what they need. A ban like this doesn't stop them. It just puts up a brick wall in front of the people who are hungriest to learn but have the least amount of money. And so it all comes down to this one huge fundamental question. It's really what's at the heart of this entire debate. Is knowledge a product, a commodity to be bought and sold? Or is it a public good, something that we should all have a right to share? That's the question that not just India, but the whole world really has to grapple with now.